Well, hi everyone. I'm Andy Asher. I'm editor at BloomerBoomer. Now, the word is courage. What a loaded word that is. For us as an individual, it's something different from what it means as a collective body. And how does it translate differently during stages of life? Well, in our discussion today, we view courage as it applies to getting older. Typically, we link courage as heroic efforts like racing into a burning building to save lives or helping out a person who's getting beaten up or mugged. You know, courage can also apply to decisions we make in our own lives that force us to make hard, courageous choices without a roadmap or a safety net and deal with the consequences. And that's what we're talking about today. The author of Courageous Aging, Your Best Years Ever Reimagined. His name is Ken Druck, Ph.D., a regular contributor to CNN, has appeared on Oprah, in the New York Times, and in countless other media over his 40-year career. And he is often called as counsel after some of the nation's worst tragedies and is a leading authority on courageous living and courageous aging. He is an outstanding resource and loaded with valuable information, and we will talk with Ken Druck in just a moment. But first, I want to let you know this is part of the Good Life Movement Plus 50, a project of the BloomerBoomer.com publication, where we bring stories and ideas from authors, thought leaders, and inspirational people. It is a movement for new and evolving things that make for a plus 50 good life. The shows are about what's working and what's not and how to make the best of it, and in the end, hopefully, something that you can take away for yourself. Our guests are idea and thought leaders, experts, people with life experiences to emulate, and folks with a unique expertise or those that give us, one of those aha moments or revelation that can suddenly transform the complex and the bewildering into the understandable. And among those is our guest today, Ken Druck. We'll be with him right after this. Well, hello today. Again, I'm Andy Asher, and along with our guest today, Ken Druck, Ph.D. He is author of Courageous Aging, Your Best Years Ever Reimagined. And Ken, thanks so much for joining us today, and what a powerful, as I said earlier, what a loaded word courage has to do in our lives. It's something that, tell us, I guess, a little background. What got you so focused on that?
Andy, first of all, I just want to thank you for the work you're doing in launching this movement, you and your show, and I'm honored to be with you today. And courage is the word of the day. Maya Angelou had a beautiful quote where she said, courage is the greatest virtue, and courage is embedded in every one of the other virtues. Each season of life challenges us to summon newfound virtue, newfound bravery, newfound courage. And the seasons of life, 50 plus, are no different. As a matter of fact, some of the challenges are even greater. So we need to summon newfound courage, bravery, to face into rather than to run from, avoid, hide, deny all the issues of getting older.
Well, that's really true. And, all of life has involved an element of courage that we deal with from time to time. There's another element of that as we get older because we see more around us that is emotionally affects us. And so I think the word courage really is, or the strength of courage is so important as we get older because some of the issues are bigger. It seems, yeah.
And for me, the word courage, I can think of things that I've done throughout every season of my life that required courage. Becoming a dad, perhaps the most difficult thing that's ever happened in my life was losing my oldest daughter, and the courage to go on after her death and to rebuild a life, to write new chapters in life, was something that served as a template for everything I've learned. And the adversity that we all have to overcome, whether we've suffered a living loss, which means nobody's died, but we've lost our health, or we've lost our partner, or we have retired from a career, whether we have somebody in our family who's estranged. Those are all living losses. All these adversities require us summoning newfound courage so that we can become the better, smarter, stronger, more efficient and effective and loving version of ourselves. And that's what I've learned. That's what I've had to do in my own life as I fought my way back into life after a tragedy.
And I read in your book about your loss, and I was so sorry. And it's wonderful of you to be able to bring your lessons that you've learned through that. And you know, I look again at courage on issues that we face as almost expected. Is the fact that we'll retire from, let's say, what we've been doing for the last however long. You know what?
There goes our identity. There goes our status. There goes our place in the world, our source of purpose and meaning. How do we retire in such a way that we literally give birth to a new season of life, to new possibilities, to the best of all possible futures, rather than staring into the abyss and falling into a deep, dark hole of depression and despair because we don't feel like our life has any meaning anymore. This is one of the great challenges of this season of life, as well as putting our house in order. Putting our house in order is critical. It's a critical element of how do we get organized so that, God forbid, anything happen to us, nobody is going to be stuck with the burden of going through all of our things, sorting out our estate, our finances, our legal issues. We don't want to leave that. We want to put our house in order so that those we love, they're going to have enough to deal with. If we pass, they're going to have enough to deal with. So how do we put our house in order legally, financially, and most important, psychologically and interpersonally in our families?
Yeah, and I'm holding your book up, and you have some worksheets in here to answer, I think, some of the questions, or work on some of the questions that you discussed. You know, and going back to the word courage.
Can I explain that a second?
Yes, please do.
So important. I've been giving courageous aging workshops, and I've been giving workshops my whole life in every part of the work that I've done over the course of my life in courageous living and elements of it. But I thought, I'm not just going to write a book. I'm going to write a book and put all the exercises that people have found so much value in doing. I'm going to put those exercises into each chapter so people have a chance to make it personal to them, to really create an action list, to take inventory, and then to look at, how do I move forward? How do I change my trajectory in such a way that I create that best possible future, that I have a vision of what I want my life to be at age 70, 65, 75, 80, and that I work towards those goals.
Well, that I can see that in there. And let's just take a situation where someone is facing retirement. That Friday they've left work, and on Monday, it's kind of easy to make a decision at that point. I mean, you're so happy to not have a job to report to. But a year later, you start thinking, okay, what now? And that's when some fear and puzzlement and uncertainty comes in. And that's where I would say it takes some courage to maybe move off some of those places that are keeping us from moving forward.
Yeah, to greet our older selves as we are today. And the time to think about that is not necessarily the day or the year after you retire. The time to think about that is way in advance, and to ask yourself, what hobbies, avocations, involvement, engagement, purpose-driven activities am I going to engage in when I retire? What could I start doing now, today, that will allow me to ease into and transition into a life that's full? Not only do I experience the relief of not having to report to a job necessarily and to be in that routine, but I kind of build in a prevention I prevent myself from staring into the abyss by filling my life with meaningful things now, by putting plans together, by reimagining my best possible future. And that way, we're building the future. We're cultivating all the things that are going to be necessary to make it meaningful, purposeful, and joyful.
So you're speaking of the importance of planning ahead is I think what you're saying.
Don't wait until the last minute. Don't wait until the last month or weeks. The time, whether you're 40, 50, 60, 70, the time to start thinking about, what do I want the future, to start imagining. We have this amazing tool called our imagination. We can close our eyes and imagine, what I see myself happy at 70, at 75, at 80. What's going on in my life that created that joyfulness, that sense of ease, that fullness and meaning in my life? What is happening? And we can imagine, because we know ourselves well enough to know what it's going to take to create that future, and start working to create it now, rather than kind of waiting around and hoping that it's going to happen and trying to catch a good break. Let's create it. Let's take charge.
Yes, as a person though who can be pointed at as being guilty of not planning as well as I should, I do take your advice well, but I also realize I could have always done better.
You know what? But we need to also learn how to forgive ourselves and say, instead of that admonishing finger of criticism, in our face, we need to embrace ourselves and say, look, I did the best I could for what I knew, and that's it. It's over. Now this is my starting place. This moment. Now I can create my best possible future doing what I can now, but I don't need to spend 1 minute of life beating myself up, admonishing myself, bullying myself, prosecuting myself for what didn't happen or what happened or what went sideways in the past. We need to let go of that past, that painful past, and stop criticizing ourselves, and instead move to self-compassion, self-care, and all the greater possibilities that are there now.
And going back to courage, it's such a huge word to me, because that's what it takes to do an awful lot of things in life. Where does one get that courage, or how do they manifest that courage when at a certain point in life they're facing some really, really tough decisions that it feels like there's no turning back sometimes?
Exactly. The mystery and the alchemy of how we summon the courage to go forward after setbacks, after discouragement, frustration, failure, that's really the history of the world. The greatest stories on which the history of this country, the history of the world, the stories that have been passed down through the ages, the greatest stories are stories of how people summoned the courage and overcame adversity. And I believe that we have within us the great possibilities. Resilience is in our DNA, that sometimes we just need to do the things to gather our strength and courage. Sometimes that means being silent and quiet. It's not something we go out and do an effort. Sometimes it's sitting in contemplative prayer. Sometimes it's sitting in silence and meditating, or in a yoga class where we're stretching. Sometimes it's doing those things, or it's talking with somebody we trust, a confidant, who we can begin to take our thoughts out of our own head, think out loud, and brainstorm creatively with. Sometimes that's the way we summon the courage. So we have all these abilities, and my book is full of all these strategies and approaches and techniques for how to build your courage so that you can face into, rather than avoiding, hiding, denying, repressing, or running away from fearfully, the things that are showing up in your life right now that need to be dealt with.
Yeah, so you're actually talking about steps that you can take to muster and garner the courage to take on a new challenge is what I hear you saying.
Absolutely. And like you said in your beautiful introduction, it's not a matter of powering through. Sometimes forcing ourselves and trying to power through things is the worst approach, the most least effective approach. Sometimes it's just our hand on our own heart, being patient, encouraging, supportive, positive with ourselves, that you can do this, encouraging ourselves, you can do this.
And go ahead. And if you, I guess the message might be, if you're unable to garner that courage, maybe it's just not meant to be.
Yeah. Sometimes, we need to face into that possibility of saying, this is just not happening, and I don't have the confidence that this is going to happen. So I got two choices. Number one, I need to get some help. I need to get a coach, somebody who can encourage me, somebody who can help me build my strength and courage. Or number two, maybe this is just not in the cards. Maybe this is one of those things in life that you just let go of, that it's going to be the way it is. It's not something that is really lending itself to change or anything I really have to do. So there are things in life that we get to let go of because they're just not going to happen. So I think those are two strategies. If we've hit a wall, those are two strong possibilities to consider. Get help or let it go, and go focus your attention on the things that are possible and within your reach.
That's great. And also in your book, I know, Ken, you talk about some of the myths of aging. Just briefly, if you can touch upon what that means.
Well, we have myths, we have biases. Andy, I've spent my whole life kind of breaking the code of gender, of race, all these things that hold us back, or ways we hold ourselves back, or things we bought into, myths, biases, judgments, criticisms that we allowed to penetrate our consciousness. And the myths of aging cause us dread and fear. One of the myths is that, just snap out of it. That you're going to age gracefully. You just have to fold your hands, fold your legs, and age gracefully. Well, sometimes that's not the way it works. Sometimes aging can be extremely harsh and difficult, and sitting with your arms and legs folded is not going to be the answer. It's summoning the courage that's going to get you through into the other side. So one of the myths is that we can all just age gracefully. Another myth is that we lose our value. I turned 68 this year. I've never been in a more creative, energized phase of my life. I think the best is ahead of me. And I am working to create that result. It's not just didn't fall into my lap. It's the work that I'm doing, how I'm spending my time. I'm so much smarter than I used to be. I'm balancing rest and activity. I know when to unplug from the screen. I'm learning all these things. The wisdom of my years is paying off for me, and it's resulting in one of the most exciting times of my life. So I'm not buying into, I'm opting out of all the myths that tell me I should be going out to pasture because I'm on the back nine of life.
I love that. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Well, this is Ken's book, Courageous Aging. And Ken, where can people get more information about your book and about you and what you do and a little bit more background?
Yeah, well, the first thing you can do is the book is going to be in bookstores October 3rd all over the country. But you can still go on to Amazon.com. You can order it. You can pre-order the book, or you can buy the Kindle version if you like to read electronically. If you're having any trouble, or if you'd like to read more or hear about the Courageous Aging workshops we're giving around the country, go to kendruck.com, KENDRUCK.com. So go online to my website or my Facebook page, Dr. Ken Druck, on Facebook, and we'll fill you in on everything that's going on, where you can get booklets. We have pamphlets we're giving out called Leaving a Legacy of Love, to give you guidelines and lots of booklets, lots of information. I look forward to hearing from you.
Well, that's neat. It's a great book, great resource, and something you can work with, and you can keep it around as a reference. So, Ken, thanks so much.
Andy, thank you, and thanks for the work you're doing.
Absolutely. You too. Our guest is Ken Druck, Ph.D., author of the book Courageous Aging, Your Best Years Ever Reimagined. We'll be back right after this. Well, I hope you liked the show and learned a thing or two. The full show will be available on YouTube and at BloomerBoomer. The audio version will be available on Apple Podcasts, and we have other shows coming up with some amazing guests. So please like us on Facebook and visit us at bloomerboomer.com. Till next time, so long.